To understand the current systemic breakdown, the framework in these files points us to a really precise historical inflection point.
It does.
It argues that the legal architecture was essentially inverted right at the foundational moment of the nation.
Yeah, and I'm going to state the core thesis of this framework directly in English, just as it appears in the audit documents you sent us. Quaid and Iqbal were cheated by legal experts.
Okay, let's pause right there,
Sure.
because that is a massive, explosive claim.
It really is.
You are basically saying that the foundational leadership, the visionaries behind the state, were not just mistaken, but systematically misdirected into a structural trap by conventional legal minds.
That is exactly what the framework argues. It claims a massive bait and switch occurred at the architectural level.
Wow.
And to prove this, the documents provide specific visual and historical anchors for us to audit. Let's pull up the first piece of evidence from your stack. It's the image file labeled quaidazam.jpg.
I have it right here.
Okay, I'm going to read the actual raw Urdu text written inside the image layer out loud first, just to establish the baseline.
Go for it.
It says, Kufan Paki Pakistan ka ain hoga, quaidazam.
Okay.
Now, translating that exactly into English, it means the Holy Quran alone will be the Constitution of Pakistan.
So if we are looking at this as auditors, that statement establishes a clear, unyielding constitutional constant.
Yes, it does.
It places the ultimate legal authority strictly outside of human amendment. It is the equivalent of a structural engineer saying, hey, gravity alone will dictate the load-bearing walls.
Right. It is absolute. But here's where the friction comes in.
Okay.
If I am a conventional secular lawyer, I am going to immediately counter that quote with the famous August 11th, 1947 address by Quaid-i-Azam to the Constituent Assembly.
Oh, right. The one they always quote.
Exactly. This is the quote legal experts constantly bring up. He said, you are free to go to your temples, you are free to go to your mosques, or to any other places of worship in this state of Pakistan that has nothing to do with the business of the state.
Wait, hold on.
Yeah.
If I'm playing devil's advocate here, a secular lawyer would look at that August 11th speech and say, look, he clearly wanted religion completely out of state business.
Right. That's the standard argument.
They use that quote to justify a completely secular, godless state apparatus. So how does the listener's framework logically refute that without just, relying on a different quote to shout over it?
By breaking down the structural categories of life rather than just arguing semantics.
Okay, I'm listening.
The audit completely rejects the secular interpretation of the August 11 address. Let's cross-reference this with the second image you provided, the one titled quaidkhalifa.jpg.
Okay, pulling that up.
The text layers here represent a completely separate conceptual layer from the August 11 quote. Do you want to read the raw Urdu out loud first?
Yeah, I'll read it. It says, Quaid-i-Azam ne farmaya, मेरा ईमान है कि ये रसूल अल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम का रूहानी फ़ैज़ है कि पाकिस्तान वजूद में न गया। अब यह पाकिस्तानियों का फ़र्ज़ है कि वो इसे खिलाफत रशीद का नामुनो बनाएं ताकि सूरा गस्वला वाला वादा पूरा करा मुसलमानों को ज़मीन की बादशाहत दे।
Perfect. And the exact English translation of that.
Translated to English, this means, Quaid-i-Azam stated, it is my faith that it is the spiritual grace of the Prophet, peace be upon him, that Pakistan came into existence. Now it is the duty of Pakistanis to make it a model of the rightly guided caliphate, so that God may fulfill his promise and grant Muslims sovereignty over the land.
Okay, so you have these two realities.
Right.
One says, go to your temples, it has nothing to do with the state.
Yeah.
And the other says, make the state a model of the rightly guided caliphate.
It seems like a huge contradiction.
Conventional historians treat it as a contradiction. They think, oh, he changed his mind, or he was just pandering to different audiences.
But the audit says otherwise.
Entirely. The Dean chart provided in your sources resolves this beautifully. It maps these two distinct concepts perfectly, showing there is zero contradiction if you actually understand the architecture of Dini Fitrat in Islam.
How does it map them?
The chart divides human existence into two completely distinct spheres. You have the private individual life, and you have the collective administrative life.
Okay, let's unpack that. Under Dini Fitrat Dini Islam, how does the framework treat the private sphere?
It cites Surah 2, verse 256,
Right.
which explicitly states there is no compulsion in religion. An individual's private life, their personal theology, their mode of worship, whether they go to a temple, a church, or a mosque, that is strictly a private affair.
I see.
It is an individual choice between a human being and their creator, and that is exactly what Quaid-e-Azam was referencing on August 11th. He was protecting the private sphere, ensuring that the state does not coerce individual belief.
But, and I guess this is the critical distinction, the legal experts deliberately blurred. According to the audit, the collective life is entirely different.
Completely different.
The political, social, and economic systems that govern everyone, like the taxation, the penal code, the economic structure, that cannot be left to individual choice.
Exactly, because it affects everyone collectively.
Right. In the collective sphere, the framework demands that the supreme law of the land be explicitly in the name of Allah.
And that is the cheat. That's the trap. The secular legal experts took a protection of private worship Surah 2.256, and they weaponized it to strip divine authority from the public square.
They basically swapped the variables.
Yes. They essentially said, because the state cannot force you to pray, the state must therefore ignore divine law in its economic and political systems. It is a massive logical leap.
It's basically structural plagiarism.
Exactly.
The documents synthesize this by pointing to Surah 3, verse 19, which states, "For Allah, Islam is the only deen," and Surah 3, verse 85, "Whomsoever adopts any deen other than Islam, or adopts Islam in any form as a mere myth, ritual, or dogma other than deen, it will not be accepted."
Which is pretty uncompromising.
Very. Because the audit defines deen not just as a personal religion, but as a complete system of governance, a comprehensive code of life.
So when we look at Dini secularism, we see exactly how it corrupted the true framework.
Yeah.
It copied the concept of individual freedom from 2.256 to market itself as, tolerant and progressive.
Right. Very good marketing.
But structurally, it completely inverted the collective affairs. Instead of the law of the land operating in the name of the creator, establishing objective justice, secularism placed the law of the land in the name of the country-state flag god idol.
That phrase, the country-state flag god idol, is so central to this audit.
It really is.
It represents the ultimate cognitive trap. Because secularism tells the masses, hey, you can keep your faith, but only as a private myth. Keep your rituals inside your house.
Yeah, don't bring it outside.
Exactly. But out in the real world, the secular state enforces its own administrative dogma by force.
Right.
It mandates its own economic systems, its own banking rules, its own penal codes, using the absolute brute force of the state apparatus.
It's essentially treating true faiths as a myth while it enforces its own reality.
It replaces the creator with an idol made of cloth and lines on a map, and it demands absolute compliance.
It basically says, your God is for the mosque, but our idol runs the parliament.